good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. Howdy doody. Welcome to the channel. If you're a newbie to the channel, welcome. I hope you'll find content of interest. If you're a returning visitor, of course, as always, I say thank you very much. Now, before I get into the video today actually is really primarily just summarising what's been happening on the channel, but I am throwing in some points for contemplation and reflection. And also, I've had an arrival, a delivery of a new crystal, shall we say. It's come in from Ukraine, so I'm quite excited about that. So I'll be talking about that in a little while. Also, just remember, or for the newbies, I do go on a waffle. I put chapter timings into the videos themselves so you can jump straight ahead to the area that you're interested in, and you don't have to sit through the whole video if it's not really your scene, which is fine. But without further ado, anyway, let's get on with it. So today's Chitter Chatter is basically more about a public reflection on my part, and also an invitation for you to give your feedback and opinion. And what has prompted this reflection, which I still haven't completed, by the way, yes, I was struggling to find a topic to talk about today with you in as far as what might be empowering. Of course, now the dog is going to do his squeaky toy, whatever. The bottom line is, what prompted me to do reflection is, if you're coming to the channel regularly, you will know that I load quotes up, and I load them as much for me as I do for you, and I find some really interesting ones sometimes, and this particular one jumped out at me. Just basically, I'll read it for you just in case people aren't literate. It says, "Surely it is much more generous to forgive and to remember than to forgive and forget." It's a quote by Maria Edgeworth. I don't know who she is. But either way, that is what prompted me to reflect, because we always read this business of, forgive and forget. That's what true forgiveness is, and all the rest of it. But I thought, I want to unpack this. What does it actually mean? To forgive and remember, I think, is fairly obvious. Well, maybe not. But then the business of generosity. So let's unpack this a wee bit. And let's start by talking about, forgive and forget, because as I said, we see this everywhere. And I'll be honest and admit that this is what I thought was the meaning of forgiveness as well. But, the questions have to be asked. What does that exactly mean? Especially if it involves a significant injury, shall we say, or an emotional injury, or if it's a betrayal, an absolute betrayal of trust, or what if it is a systemic injustice and you've been hurt because one of your people has either died maliciously, a beloved family member, maliciously at the hand of a criminal perpetrator or a psychopath, or in perhaps a car accident because a person was irresponsible and they were drinking when they were driving. When we talk about forgiving and forgetting, just what exactly are we talking about forgetting? Because we can never actually forget completely, dependent on the situation, the nature of the injury. Are we deceiving ourselves by saying, I forgive and I forget? Now, I have long been this, I can't think of the word, promoter, shall we say, of the thought concept that, forgiveness doesn't mean saying that what a person does is okay. It's being unwilling to carry the burden of anger with you as you go forward into your life. And I still maintain that, okay? It's like anger doesn't really help us, especially if it's angry at people who have just moved on, who've got no care. Some people will hurt people as they go through the course of their life and not give it a second thought. They won't even recognise or acknowledge the pain that they've inflicted on others, and they just continue on their merry, hurtful path. So I understand holding on to anger against them for what we perceive that they've done to us is that case of, there's another saying about anger and bitterness is empowering those people that hurt you, or it's like swallowing rat poison and the only person that it hurts is you. So I understand all this business of forgiveness being important, but what about the forget bit? Does that lead to the repression of feelings? Are we repressing and suppressing? Is it actually healthy to forget that somebody did something that was hurtful? And if we do forget, are we forgetting the lessons that we have gained from that experience, which is the capacity perhaps to trust our own instincts, especially if we were the victim of something, and we could have read the signs. Because I think a lot of the time where we struggle to overcome injury is because we beat ourselves up. Think about somebody that has been highly hurt, and they say, I should have known, I should have seen the symptoms, or the signs, I should have read it properly, or I didn't read the room and I didn't recognise what was happening or the risks that I was taking. So they beat themselves up. That's a thought process that's quite commonly associated with PTSD, by the way. So is forgetting helpful, is where I'm going. So, of course, I'd like to invite you to put up your thoughts in regard to whether or not it's helpful to forget, and if it's better for all of us to forget. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no right or wrong answer with this. It's obviously going to come down to our personal beliefs. Now, where I'm going with this as well is I was contemplating and reflecting upon this, as well as the concept of generosity, where this lady claims that it's more generous to forgive and remember than to forgive and forget. So, if Cindy's around, hopefully she'll listen to this. So where I'm going with this particular conversation is I had to go out yesterday morning. I was going to the hairdressers, if you must know, to get my hair done. And either way, I ended up getting chatting to a lady called Cindy. And in the course of conversation, I mentioned to her that I was reflecting on this quote, and I could see her become a bit disturbed. Now, Cindy, you will agree with me, I'm sure, that your response to this when I put it to you was basically the same as mine, where we just repeat the stuff that we've been told, about letting go, forgetting, and all the rest of it, and the comments about the rat poison, and, we forgive for ourselves and letting go of anger and all of this kind of thing. This is now stuff I think that is embedded in our psyche, stuff that we've been taught. This is a social conditioning. Now, I'm not saying it is right or wrong, and I'm sure Cindy agrees with this, but I do actually now, I am questioning, and I haven't reached a conclusion on this, if it is actually more generous to forgive and remember. Because maybe, and I think this was something that Cindy said, is that, maybe it is because maybe if we remember what has happened, then we're not actually boxing a person into being unable to change. You know what I mean? So it's a measure of growth. And perhaps I think it might be more important to remember when it comes to our family members, and not to remember in a judgmental way, but as people and in families, when we've got blood families, we tend to have this amazing capacity to hurt each other without even trying. So if we can remember the hurt, I'm just putting this out there, wondering about this, we can look at that situation or that person and measure their growth. Not that that's important, by the way, it's really not important. But if we love that person and we forgive them and we remember, so we're not angry at them, we're not judging them as right or wrong, but we're basically, I guess, keeping that idea in our head. And when they reap achievements, shall we say, or they succeed at things and they shift past the previous limitations, we're then able to be their cheer squad, I guess. So that's a very generous thing. And by that, I'm thinking about, I have family members, and I'm sure you do too, that at different times in their life when they were growing up and maturing, and that we were judgmental. The younger we are, the more judgmental we seem to be. And we don't hold out. In some instances, we might not hold out a lot of hope for that person in their future. But when they do things now, currently, say 10 or 15 years down the track, we can do that really positive feedback of, did you ever see yourself doing this? Did you ever see yourself achieving this? Bearing in mind how many years ago was it and your life was like this, remember? And they go, oh yeah, I prefer not to, because it's generally not the best years of their life either. And that's a time to turn around and say, yeah, look, I get that, but you know what? You are amazing. Look how far you've come. Look at what you have achieved through being able to pursue, to keep striving towards this positive future. And I'm going to relay a personal scenario here because it's something I contemplated on when I was actually doing the transcripts for the slides. And I thought it might actually lighten things up and make us all laugh a bit, because I'm no spring chicken myself anymore. I'm certainly getting on in my years. And so is my brother. And of course, our mother is much older than what we are. And my brother and I will often make comments about my mother's capacity to do the forgive and forget. And the way she approaches it is when things turn sour, because she likes to think of herself as a good Christian woman, she will turn around and say, "Oh, well, yesterday's a bucket of ashes. Move on from it. We're not going to acknowledge that. We can't change it. What's done is done. The cat's milk has been spilt or whatever." And so we've observed that she's got this really selective memory of being able to push back anything where she might have actively been involved in inflaming a situation or creating tension in the family unit or whatever. She can push that one right back and forget all about it. That one's done and dusted, as they say. Now, in fairness to her, she also has this amazing capacity for denial when she may have been hurt by perhaps another family member. Another family member may have given her a brutal truth, shall we say. And she will be very hurt from that because she's quite sensitive, I must say. Um, Now, what happens there is, of course, is that she will refuse to discuss. So this is one of the issues that my brother and I have dealt with, is sort of saying, "Mum, until you actually face and confront these issues, the more there is this denial, then these issues will continue to surface and recur because they are repeating patterns, of course." Of course, she won't accept that, so she just does deny it. But, I've got to say, within all of this, to her credit, she doesn't throw it in people's faces. She will keep it to herself, but it is very much a repression and a suppression. And every now and again, what will happen is she gets triggered and she becomes explosive because she can't keep this pain inside of her bottled up. So, as much as she tries to force forgiveness, she doesn't actually manage to do it, is where I'm going, because she doesn't acknowledge the pain, I guess. So, maybe it's more healing for us to remember the pain. It's not just about generosity, maybe it's about healing. But I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. And before I go on, I'm going to give you a tip that Cindy said came from her husband, something to reshape our thinking patterns. Basically, it's how we apply meaning to certain words, and certain words look and sound bad to us when we hear them, and they sort of incur uh, guilt, shall we say. So, if I've been sitting around in deep contemplation or whatever, twiddling my thumbs and contemplating my navel or whatever, I know that I'm procrastinating, and then I'll feel guilty about it. And in fact, I think if I feel guilty about the fact I've been procrastinating, I then block myself from actually, making progress at my goals. But anyway, what she said was that her husband sees procrastination as positive. All right. And immediately when she said that, I thought, I can see where he's coming from. The moment she started talking about it, um, because, yes, this is reshaping thoughts. He says procrastination is a space of contemplation and reflection and considering actions. Basically, your actions are more measured if you have managed to take the time to reflect on how you might react. You're choosing your actions and what might be the consequences of those actions. So I would say I totally agree with that. But at the same time, I'm doing a big but here, because when I was at university, procrastination was considered a really big problem, okay? And we were all discouraged from procrastination, and largely because we had deadlines to meet. So this is where I think procrastination can be problematic, is if you've got a deadline to meet, which you do if you're studying, you've got to get essays and submissions in a timely way, and often the content that you're actually putting together requires thinking out. It needs a lot of rational processing to it. So if you've got a deadline and you spend too much time thinking about the problem as opposed to doing anything about the problem, well, you might actually create further problems for yourself, because you might get your essay in too late, or you might be marked down because you left yourself too short a time frame to actually put it together, and so then the quality of the submission got compromised. So anyway, there's some food for thought. So if you're a regular to the channel, you are going to know that I regularly address technological issues, namely with my internet connection speeds and so forth, and that the last couple of months I tried to go better. I tried to actually go on the 5G, which is the best in Australia apparently at the moment. Anyway, not best for me, shall we say, because it turns out that I was right on the boundary of the catchment area, so it was so incredibly slow. I've ended up changing again and reverting back to the NBN optical fibre, so things have improved so much. I have at least got a decent speed again, so thank God for that. It's made doing the video prep so much easier. So most of the work at the moment is being done on the crystal content because I've got most of the playlists to, I think, a fair standard, really. I've covered a lot of content in them. But anyway, the crystal content is going to keep me going for quite a while, I think. I will put in smatterings of others, perhaps as time goes by. I'll talk about that in a little while. But anyway, what I wanted to tell you about was I have received my Seraphinite in the post. I actually found it over the fence. It had been thrown over the fence yesterday. Got on the postman. I'm not sure if he threw it over the fence on Friday or if it arrived in the morning before I went off to the hairdressers. But either way, it was well packaged. It was under the lemon tree. It had been exposed to rain, but it was well packed, so it was all good. So I've taken some photos to show you. Now, there was something I was going to tell you about that business of the rain. Oh, we're in the middle of a heat wave. That's what I was going to tell you. We are in the middle of a heat wave. It's been 43 degrees Celsius. It's in the late 30s all week. But yes, we had a couple of days of high humidity and a sprinkling of rain because we've got a cyclone up north. But anyway, let's take a look at these photographs. I'm not going to win photography awards, okay? So just to be clear, I knew when I was buying this item online, I bought it off a platform. It was fairly cheap for Seraphinite because that stuff's pretty darn expensive. I was able to tell from the photographs because I'm familiar with it. I already had some tumbles. So these photographs of what I've got in my reading room right now, I've actually got them out. So although they're poor quality photographs, it's going to give you a bit of an idea. What I've got is, I tell you all the time, I put my crystals on a selenite log because I'm lazy, it's quick. The selenite is brilliant, and in fact, one of those photographs, you actually get a bit of gloss coming off it, so that should show you we're looking at Moroccan selenite there. I will do a video about selenite at some point in time. I knew that, going back to, I knew that this was not a high quality piece of Seraphinite because of the colour. So if you look at the colour, so we're looking at the left-hand image here, it doesn't really show you how green those tumble stones are. Okay, it's actually a very deep green. Now my new piece, as you see, is quite light green. It's got a lot of white on it. Now if you were to zoom in though, you would see that white is absolutely stunning. I have never ever seen a piece of Seraphinite like this. It's almost pearlescent, okay, and I didn't know that Seraphinite came this way. Okay, it's just absolutely beautiful. So it's far better than anything I imagined I would get. Now the other thing too, so this is a buying tip for you, okay, when you look at that central image, what I would expect to see when I'm buying a crystal is that there is a ruler next to it. Forget putting a coin next to it, maybe a pen, and I want to see it from all angles. And this is what you're seeing here. You're seeing the front and the back. Now I'm limited with how many photos I can put up for this, but I would also, if I was listing this for sale, which I'm not, I would be showing a side angle so people could see how thick it is. Now, just for your information, it's about 1 centimetre thick, maybe a bit more actually, maybe 1.5, which is rather a large piece, but it's cheap because it's not got that depth of colour as you see in these tumbles. But if you look at the central image, which shows this brown bit in the middle, which is obviously not Seraphinite, that's kind of the natural growth rock, shall we say, that the Seraphinite grows on. But you're going to see sort of midway up on the ruler side, you've got that little bit of dark green there with the angles going around it. Now that is absolutely stunning, I must say. The photos do not do it justice. Just as another comparison there for you as well, is at the bottom of that central image, What we have is a pendant there. It's a large pendant, actually, and it's got the greenstone, the New Zealand greenstone, and it's got a sliver of Seraphinite there as well. So it's 3 stones in one pendant, actually. And then the right-hand image, you can see the greens a little bit better, which I wanted you to see that. And I wanted you to see why this looks a bit white. And of course, this is the back of the Seraphinite. Anyway, bottom line is, my experience of it so far is I unwrapped it at the hairdressing salon. It created interest. Everybody was looking at it. Everybody was talking about it and asking questions. I think we all loved it. And at the end of the day, obviously prompted social connection. My hairdresser Edward said to me at the end of the day, once he finished my hair, now you can go home and not look like a mad woman. Thank you very much. My dog's going berserk. For those that are interested, this particular item I know weighs 3 ounces, so that should give you an indication. It's really not a massive piece. What can I say about this? Not a lot more, just that I've decided that I'm going to use it. I'm going to be doing an online reading later on today, not on the channel, but I'm actually going to use Seraphinite as opposed to Celestite, which is what I normally use. I just want to try it out and see how it works for me when I do my tarot readings. So, over the next week or two, we're going to be looking at crystals. It wasn't planned this way, but these crystals are primarily recommended for women. I mean, men can use them as well. There's no gender division when it comes to crystals, but the reason why they're referred to as women's crystals is because they're believed to benefit our hormonal cycle, the menstrual cycle, and any hormonal imbalances for women. So Bloodstone is the first one that's up. That one's been published now. Now, of course, Realgar has been published, and if you watched my yarning last week, you'll know that I actually, same as I've got the Seraphinite now, I actually ordered the Realgar and the Orpiment because I want to give it a try. I'd actually never been exposed to it, and I will say it is actually very beautiful, and I've got it set up in my study because this is my working area, and this is a crystal that's associated with manifestation and success and willpower and blah, 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 all of that kind of positive stuff. And I thought, well, it makes sense to actually put it in my study area. Now, last week's video, I said, look, I hadn't really noticed any of these attributes coming to the fore. I'll be honest, I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not selling them anyway. I've got no agenda to make a product sound really good if it's not really good, or if my experience of it isn't really good. What I will say, though, is where I said last week I hadn't noticed any benefits or changes in my life that might reflect the energy of Realgar, it's actually, I'm rethinking that is where I'm going. Yesterday I was thinking, actually, you know what? I think I am seeing progress. But I did read somewhere when it comes to the attributes of willpower, power, strengthening, all of this kind of stuff, that it's subtle in as far as it's not something like, oh, I've got my Realgar, I'm going to wave my wand and all my wishes are going to come true and I'm going to end up with a new car in the driveway or whatever. It's not that kind of energy. It's kind of step by step. It's very progressive. And I will say I have actually observed changes in my life today. Now, we can all turn around and say, well, that might be psychosomatic. Now that she's got a Realgar, she's actually taking conscious steps each day. That might be true. But either way, what I'm saying is, yes, I am making progress towards some of my goals and I am being more self-disciplined in regard to solving some of the problems. And I think reflective of that is the very fact that I've sorted out the problem with the internet. Thank God for that. So next week, sticking with the women's theme, we're looking at Chrysocolla. Now, that video is scheduled to be published. It's already loaded there, ready to go. Obviously, I stagger them out because I don't wish to actually spam everybody. I worry about that stuff a bit. But anyway, Chrysocolla is associated with the divine feminine, self-nurturing, self-love. And the reason it's associated with women, actually, is because generally speaking, and I say generally, women tend to compromise their own health and well-being as part of being mothers or grandmothers or the primary caregivers or whatever. So it's a very nurturing crystal. And anyway, that one's scheduled for release. I think it's Thursday. You're going, oh no, it'll be Tuesday next week. It will be Rhodonite that is published on Thursday next week. Now, Rhodonite is another one of those women's focused at women. And once again, there's a rationale that is applied to that, where women do tend to self-sacrifice. I've got to say general here, because we all know that there are some women that don't, okay, and we all know that there are some men that do, okay, but it is still referred to as a women's stone, I guess, because we're talking about divine feminine and divine masculine, and sticking with those traditional stereotypes when it comes to energy. Okay, so just put that little bit in there before anybody gets upset. So anyway, Rhodonite actually works very well for enhancing self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, obviously a theme today, and to really embed self-care and self-love, but not that delusional type of self-love of I'm so fabulous, everybody loves me, why don't you? Not that kind of love, okay? That humble, self-accepting love where you know your strengths, your limitations, but you're able to walk your truth comfortably in life, confident with who you are, which so many people struggle with, for one reason or another. So anyway, that's a really good crystal, is all I can say right now. I do recommend anybody with a low self-esteem or insecurities of any way, shape or form actually watch that video, because they'll at least, even if they don't buy the crystal, you'll think about things within yourself. It will prompt self-reflection, I guess, on what you can do to actually help heal yourself and achieve your own personal potential. I should have said on the other slide, I fully intend to actually go and buy some Rhodonite in the very near future, because I recognise also that my confidence is actually probably running at a bit of an all-time low at the moment. Well, no, maybe not that bad, but I certainly do lack confidence in myself, and I think that's part of the reason I'm stalling with delivering the tarot readings. And it's not just about confidence, actually, because I'm quite comfortable delivering a reading. That's not the problem. The confidence is actually with going public, doing it in a public forum, and also the creativity aspect, the technology, trying to be able to do these things in a faceless way. You know what I mean? I like to have my privacy separate. You know what I mean? I want to keep the world separate and not colliding. But anyway, so as I said to you before, I'm going to trial something out later on today, because I'm committed to actually doing this and delivering free readings online. I like to do it in the past. I've always loved to do it. But I also like to do the best that I can, I guess, is probably a better description. Anyway, in the meantime, I am doing the tarot and tea. I still do that once a month, and that's happening this week. I'm going to one on Wednesday night, and then my intention also is to start doing the tarot readings from home again, to actually do them in my place, my space, face-to-face, to get back into doing that. So I'll let you know when I start doing that, just in case you live in Perth, Western Australia, and you want to come by for an appointment. I will let people know. And when I start delivering them online, which I should be able to do soon, I don't think I'll be able to do lives, okay? That's the bottom line too. I don't think I can do lives, because the internet speed, I don't think, is compatible with what's overseas. But I certainly want to test that out at some point. So just a reminder, of course, that I've got the channel with multiple playlists, and you can go and check out whatever blows your hair back. We've looked at angels. I will expand on them again in the net. Well, I won't put a time frame on it. My intention is actually to do more videos about angels. I've got the more evidence-based health and wellbeing and self-help type content based on my social work and mental health studies. What else have I got? I've got content on chakras. I want to build that out at some point in time and have some more videos on energy work and how to use energy. I've also got up the content on colour and numerology. Interesting story. Cindy told me the other day that she feels quite, I'm trying to think of the word, Well, let's just say she doesn't know her birthday because her mother can't remember it because they were in a war zone at the time and there was a lot of pressure and that kind of stuff. So her mother remembers the month that she was born, but she actually can't remember the exact day. So she feels deprived. That's what I'm thinking about, because numerology can reveal so much to a person about a life path. And so she feels deprived because she can't access that. You can. And if you know your birth date, you can actually go and work out your own. And I've given you, that's like a workshop on that numerology playlist. Anyway, hopefully I will see Cindy again. Hopefully we will cross paths and I will give her another option for how she can find out life purpose, life path without knowing her numerology, because obviously there's more roads, shall we say, than one for every particular journey or every specific journey. God, I must be getting tired. Okay, on to the last slide. Which, of course, is where I say thank you very much for being part of my journey. I hope that you've found the content interesting. I hope that I've given you something to think about. And I hope also that when it comes to crystals, that I'm giving you information to support you when you buy your own. For now, though, as we just established, I'm starting to get fatigued, like what's going on. So I'm going to say love you, leave you, have a blessed day, blessed week, and catch you on the next video. Take care for now. Bye-bye.